many impressions, I can tell you. I took like 600 photos, and I'm going to explain to my crew at home and to my wife and who I know that this country is worth visiting, even though it's a little difficult to go to Vienna first. It's worthwhile. It's a lovely nature and lovely population. I was in Serbia 1 week ago, and I can clearly feel the difference between the Macedonians and the Serbs. I was in Finland 5 days ago, and that was even another population. You're very mild-hearted and open, and I think that the future for you, if you can get rid of the corrupted politician, it will be very fine. I noticed that you hate the new buildings, but as a tourist, we find it quite extraordinary. It's like small Paris or something like that. You have everything in the city. You have a fantastic infrastructure. It works, except for the traffic, of course, but that's in every city. And I especially enjoyed the mixture of impressions I had here, from the bazaar and until to Makta, where I was visiting yesterday. I brought a friend of mine, and we have been traveling many places in the world. And for him, it was the first time in old eastern part of Europe, and he was so curious, and he hasn't been, disappointed 1 single second. The food is marvelous. Everything is good. And the book festival is new still, I feel it. And of course it's small, but it's intimate. And I like that. I like to meet the readers and to see what's behind the big Pochomkin, you know. So it was nice. Then you have a heart because of the easy name. There goes it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And have a good read.
Yes,
I cross my fingers, you know. My expectation is that it will be incredibly small, but intimate. And whether there are 3 persons or 50, you know, I will meet it with my personality as I am, just straightforward. And I will be easy to come to and to ask questions and so forth. I have no expectations really. I saw the meeting with Håkan Nesser, and it was for him also a new experience, of course, to be in a place like that. But I think I will be happy, and in a total overall it was interesting. Also the television this morning, so I can't complain. Never less what happens. It means that I meet my audience. And for instance, in Germany, when I'm having an audience, it's never less than 1,200 people. And they're paying a lot, 30 euro to see me. I've been for audience over 2,500, and in almost all places like circuses and big halls and so forth, even, you know, in automobile factories. I've been everywhere and seen everything, I guess. But first of all, and that's the main purpose, is to meet the reader in the eye height, to see what works. I mean, I want to make the reader in big events laugh every minute. And very often I bring an actor to read aloud my text in the local language, and then I have a moderator. And when I'm performing like that, with a crew that I know of, we are equal on the stage. We can do everything. We can jump around, we can sing, we can dance, we can, you know, take off our clothes if we want to. There are no limitations to what we can do, actually. And that makes a full stand-up. And I think it's fantastic. And I think that many of the readers are taking, you know, this experience like meeting not only the author, but meeting someone they didn't expect to meet. And that's funny. I'm translated into 43 languages and being sold in 125 countries. And of those 43 languages, I know the 8. But I can only read it in 5 different languages, 5 or 6. And there, of course, I can see what the translator has done. And in all the other countries, I have no idea. The only thing I know of is that to read about the Scandinavian countries in South Korea must be very strange. The translations is like so important that without a really good and thorough, not only translator, but also a literary person, it will never succeed. So I have a system where I meet my translators in Frankfurt and also in Copenhagen. I can tell you I kiss a lot because they are so important. If you're talking about my own genre as a crime and thriller literature, I never read it. Never. I haven't read it for many, many years. I'm afraid of being a copycat, simply. But to be very, very frank, I'm not impressed for the moment. And it's not because of what they are writing about, it's the writing style. The writing style nowadays is very popular to make what I call regi style. And regi style means that first of all in a sentence you describe what's happening. I mean, and the man took the cup, he went through the door and out in the wonderful landscape. For me it's idiotical. You can start with a regi, but then you must stop. I can give you an example. I could write, for instance, I have never done it, but it's only an example. The man stood on a stone. That's regi. But then you have to leave it. The man stood on a stone, but that's not the problem. The problem is not even that the stone is wet. The problem is not even that there's a flood around. The problem is not even that he's standing around the river. The problem is around his neck there's a line, and the line is being attached to a branch. And if he is slipping, you know what will happen. So that's the opposite of the regi. And it's also, I mean, 9 out of 10 books are being written like that. And I hate it, really. I hope it will surpass very, very soon this style of writing. But a part of that, there are some writers that are very absurd today, and I love them. They are crazy, like Erlend Loe in Norway, or Jerzy Kosinski from Poland, or Peter Stitchel from Austria. Crazy stuff, short novel very often, but then you have to read it once more than once to understand what it's all about. So I love that. It's not only about crime and murder, it's what is happening into a person to come to this point where there are no return. And it can be for several reasons. And all of us, from time to time, would like to kill one person, just to get rid of this person. Berlusconi in Italy, kill him, get rid of him. And Donald Trump, I mean, make the single shot, that's it. All the corrupted people you know and so forth. The people you don't like, but you don't do it. That's a difference. And it's like writing, you can, as a journalist, write from here to here. But what's happening after that, you can't write about it. And you can't think about it, because you can't kill a person. So people like to, to put themselves on the borderline of what's possible for their character. And to enter that place where it's so dark that if it was real, you would never return. But the lovely thing about the book is you can do like this, put it on the table, kiss your boyfriend, take a hot dog, whatever, and you're still you. So that's a very, very good explanation to the dark side. To the other sides, I mean, not crime stories, but thriller stories can take any subject. Social, political, love affairs, whatever, murders. So it's the most complete kind of writing you can ever have is to write a thriller story. And you know it from the old thrillers like Count of Monte Cristo, where this main character was imprisoned, but he didn't know who did it and why. That's a thriller. You have to read until the end and know what is going on and hopefully prevent a crime to happen. That's a thriller story. So you can write about everything in this genre. It's not easy in a Barbara Cartland story of love and romance to write about killings. And it's not in an Agatha Christie novel easy to read about love affairs or sex even. No sex in Agatha Christie, no. So a very complete reason to read it and to write it.
Very simply, I love your book.
I love you too.
It's just reading this book, you know, I remember 10 years ago when I was young. I was then in that period I was living in London, and you know, London is always raining. So I was...
Like Denmark.
Yeah, similar. So, and in this period, I really wanted to read more about contemporary literature, and I was reading all Men Booker Prize. And I got this book, Bone People, from an amazing book from New Zealand. And I was reading this book for, I think, 2 weeks. And believe me, you need to translate this book. Every 1 hour, I was reading and throwing the book, because I could not, emotionally, I could not live with this woman, very strong woman, very strong character, and this handicapped boy, and their beautiful relation. So it took me a very short time. It took me 10 days to read this amazing book. So when I started reading this book, I read the first 40 pages, and after that I started throwing the book. Because I would get emotionally so much involved with these characters that I could not find something inside me I needed to stop, to relax, to think, to breathe deeply, and to continue reading.
I guess so you're the best reader in the world then.
Yeah. No, but what I loved in your book is the characters. Not often you meet so real and so human characters. Your female protagonist is amazing. It's amazing. It's a strange beast in a human body who fight to survive. You have these main characters, which you think they're stereotypes because they're policemen, but they are actually very complex and very deep characters. You have this immigrant who always you have very stereotypic thoughts about it. So I love the way how you discover them to us, to the readers. I love the emotion you bring to us. I love the honesty you bring to us, and I love the structure. I love the structure because you're forcing me to travel through the time, and you're forcing me to be in 3 pages in one setup in today Denmark, and after that to go back. And you are forcing me like a puzzle to discover and to give in my mind some clues, which later you will discover that they're not right clues. So I think everyone you should simply read this book. Even if you're throwing it, it will make you to go through the end. So
Thank you so much, dear. I mean, now I feel like reading the book. Really, it could be fantastic. And very often I also forget what I'm writing many years ago, so maybe I should really. Thank you so much.
But how you get inspirations for this book? Where did you get the inspiration? Because it's amazing the truthness of it. At least I had the feeling that it's very true. I'm sure you make very deep researches about. Can you tell us a little bit how you?
Yes, gladly. Do you understand me?
Yes.
You ought to, because this is English. You know, first of all, I'm amazed to be here in Macedonia. It's a lovely, lovely country, and it's so fantastic that you are actually speaking English, so many of you. Thank you for that. Well, you know, this is a project, actually, of the longest crime story in the world. That was the main thing for me in 2005, to make a story that was never told before, like secrets of the three main characters who are working in the police yard in Copenhagen, and to slowly give you all the secrets throughout 5,500 pages. I'm sorry, but I'm also sorry for myself, because I thought it could take me 10 years to make, and I now know it will take me 50. Anyway, the project was all about to find a police officer in Denmark that actually could do all kinds of police. So normally you can only work in special regions and with special crimes. So how to solve the problem? I was asked by a film producer, do you want to make a police series? And I said, certainly not. It's so boring. So I invented a person that actually don't care about his work anymore. He wants to be sacked out of the police force. But you don't do that in Copenhagen. They are too loyal to the police officers. And instead of that, they place him in the cellar, where he maybe are so bored that he would resign himself. But they don't know my main character, because my main character actually likes to do nothing. He's like me. I mean, I'm lazy, extremely lazy. But I'm so ashamed of being lazy, so I'm working all the time throughout my life. Anyway, he's sitting in the police yard in the cellar, he's smoking cigarettes, which is not allowed, and he's laying his feet on the table and looking at television, doing absolutely nothing, and he can do that for 10 years. So I had to invent a catalyzer. The catalyzer is a Syrian, so we think, a Syrian refugee, and he's actually being employed like a cleaning lady with green rubber gloves. So now I have another character. It's like Sherlock Holmes and Watson. But I decided you must never know who is who actually. So I give them a lot of secrets on their back. And we know that secrets is what we are made of. Maybe you know your fiancé or your wife or husband, but they have secrets that you don't know, and it's a big part of them. So, secrets. Then you can interact endlessly between characters. Now, in book number 2, I invent another character, a woman, because we needed the force of women and the chaos in the police yard, and she's purely anarchy. I can tell you, you will hate her and love her, and she's bringing forward more secrets. So, secrets of Assad, the Syrian refugee, Karl Merck, and Rose, as she's called, was the main thing. But then I had to have the cases too. And now that's what you're explaining about the woman in the cage. This was before Natasha Kampusch came out. This was before Fritzen and Amstetten that I wrote this. So people in Denmark, when I wrote the book, said, that could never happen. But it did, and it will happen all the time. And we have the animal in America, and all the time we see that purely elderly men are keeping young women caught. But to keep them caught is not interesting. The interesting is, while you're reading the book, and it's going on for 6 years, is to know the 6 years by heart. And how to explain 6 years. You can say, well, now 1 year passed and that's it. I explain it by putting her in a pressure chamber. That means the pressure is up 1 atmosphere every year. And we know, after 6 years, if you take out the pressure, then you will certainly die and very hurtful. I know a person who is a diver, and he told me, coming from 6 atmosphere and up within sudden means, first of all, the fillings in your teeth will blow. Hurtful, right? And then the air in your knuckles, in your bones, will be bigger, and all the knuckles will be like tiny pieces. Very, very hurtful way. So this is not a crime story. This is a thriller. And what's the difference between a crime story and a thriller? You tell me. Maybe you know, but a crime story is all about a crime that happens, and then you have to solve it, investigate it. Very simple. And I don't like that. It could be a crime story also, but it must be a thriller. So I use the tricks from Hitchcock and other movie makers that suspense is very, very important. And suspense means that you know something about the main characters, that the main characters doesn't know themselves. So if you read one chapter, and I'm using point of views, in one chapter you're in head of one person, and this person is going to be killed if he enter a door in 2 chapters. And you know that as a reader. So then when the chapter is coming, you say, don't enter the door, that's suspense. Suspense means also that, a thriller means also that you are trying to prevent a crime to happen in the end. And you know that from action movies. You want to see the end, come on, faster, faster. And you could do that within 2 hours. But reading a book, like you, my dear, takes a little more time. So we want to keep attraction, right? How did I invent this character? I invented the character because I wanted to show the time passing. And the time passed like 1 year in fully light in the pressure chamber, next year in fully darkness, fully light, fully darkness. And all of us can imagine how it is to live in a chamber 1 year, totally dark, or with light all the time. That's torture, right? It's not a harsh torture, but it's a torture anyway. So that was my main thing, to show a woman slowly falling down to pieces against the faith that she would die when the person who captured her would take the pressure out of the treasure chamber. Now we have Kalmørk, Assad, and they are the ones who should, like the cavalry in a cowboy movie, come in the very last moment, but we don't know whether it will happen or not.
When did you start writing?
Like any one of us, I had a teacher, and I should write the freestyle, right? But I had a teacher that actually could see when I ever made something good. She clapped my shoulder. And that's the most important. If you ever see a child doing something good, please tell the child, this is fantastic. It's the most important thing to do. I was like raised by that. And one day she suggested me, why don't you make a freestyle in competition in Denmark? The competition of competing with a lot of other children made me write freestyles. 3 times I attended the competition in Denmark, and 3 times I won. So I knew from the very first start that I could write. But the most important thing that happened to me was I was a Boy Scout. What is spelling? It's your phone. Oh, goodbye phone. Doesn't matter. You're needed, right? I understand why. Okay, I was a Boy Scout, and I had a friend, and he was I was 14 years old and a Boy Scout, and I had a friend, and he and I, we made funny stuff, like walking 100 kilometers in 24 days, 24 hours. Now he suggested that we should build a tower. So it was like a tent, you know, and upside there was a triangle, and we put a turf of grass up there, and we should stay there for a week, because we have read that some soldiers had been up in a tower like that for 3 days, and we were tough. 1 week we had to stay there. But after 3 days we knew why they went down, the soldiers, because it was boring. And it was in the autumn, so we saw the leaves came to the turf. So, shame on you, see, but we made cigarettes of grass and leaves from trees. And it tasted awful, but it was funny. But what was not funny was that from that you are having diarrhea. Heavy diarrhea. So, and we couldn't go down, so we had to stay up there and place our bottom out of the triangle, and then
It was mentioned in the local newspaper that there were two Boy Scouts up there. So old ladies that was like house ladies had pure time to go there and say hello to us while we were sitting there and shitting, to say it frankly. This was the first thing I learned about being an author or an actor or a moderator. You have to be brave. To meet people, to tell frankly in television or wherever, or this audience here, whatever you need to say, you must be brave. Many authors are not doing the same thing I am, like attending for the audience, because they are introverts and don't dare to do it. So for that reason, they're not well known. We learned that. And another thing I learned after 3 days was, it was boring. If I couldn't smoke, what could I do? So we told each other stories, my friend and I. And my friend, he was good in remembering. So he told Edgar Allan Poe, The Monkey's Paw, or the most fantastic horror stories. He remembered. I couldn't, because I'm an author. I always invent things. When I was a rock star, I invented all my texts. I couldn't remember them simply. And people sang with me, but something different than I sang. I didn't care. But I invented stories for him. And I realized after 3 days, he couldn't sleep at all. He didn't sleep for 3 days. And I knew that horror stories, I could do it once, if I ever came to that. So when I was 30 years old, I went to the Netherlands together with my wife. I did many things in my life, but we wanted to try me to write a story. And the story I wrote was gruesome, but I did it. I mean, 600 pages. It was all about in Cambodia, and it was all about Idi Amin and Khmer Rouge and so forth. And it was so harsh that actually today I can't read it. But I made it anyway. So I knew I could write from one end to another a book. Now, when I was 45, I was a boss, the manager of the biggest publishing house in Scandinavia, called the Bonniers. And I saw all my colleagues just die. You know, when they were 55 years old, they just died from stress, frustration, deadlines. There I told myself, I will not die, 55 years old. Now I'm 67, still alive. Clock, clock, clock. 9:13 we say. So I had a son at that time at 6 years old, and I wanted to be the housewife, to go to my house, make pancakes every day, see him play football, and then write. And I realized that to be an author is the best work you can have in your life. And why? Because you can sleep as long as you want to, and you can work in your pajamas. So it was wonderful. And that was it. I mean, I couldn't expect a success like this. So for the first 10 years, I mean, I was, well, living from that. It was okay. I had best-selling lists in Spain and in the Netherlands and in Sweden and so forth, but I was not very well known in Denmark. There I decided to make a police officer story going on in Denmark with Danish characters and Danish locations. And that I hit the ground like a success, and for the success I gave away all my time. So if you're going to be authors, try to be a little simple. Then you'll have a more perfect life. I mean, you can stay at home, still be in the pajamas. I will not complain about the success now, but if I knew 10 years ago what that would accomplish, maybe I would have made something different. But that's a full story.
Who is reading first your book? When
Okay.
you're finished, to whom do you trust most?
Well, it's not very, very difficult to answer because we have a specific ritual, my wife and I. I do it like this. Normally my books are 45 chapters. After 36 chapters, I give away one every day to my wife. Then she shall read it and she shall correct it and criticize it. every day is an exam, I can tell you. It's terrible. And I'm like walking like I'm giving birth. I know, like you are giving birth to the next child, my dear Svetlana here. It's terrifying. And I'm writing in the meantime the next few chapters, like 11 chapters. And when I finish up, she finishes up too. We meet on the same ground the very last day. But can you imagine whatever happens if she says to me in chapter 5, I don't believe in the character. And it happens once in a while. What do you have to do then? Write all over. Start from the very first page again. And that's very problematic for me. But every correction she demands, I do. Then later on I turn it to my publisher's editor. And this editor I choose myself. She's wise, she's a journalist, she's good in research, she's hard on me. And then I give her my manuscript and I say, do you know what? No mistakes this time. It's the most perfect manuscript you ever saw. But even though she finds 5 comma mistakes, sentences that you have to change a little, maybe even corrections, 5 on each page, it means 2,500 corrections. Do I make the corrections? Everyone, I do. Because they are my most important readers, and they are the tunnel to the reader like you. So I had to listen, certainly, and it must be easy. But there's a lot of trick in writing. Maybe I could tell you later on.
Well, in the process of writing, do you think how will the reader think of this? How will he accept this? Does it influence in the structure of the?
Well, I was a publisher before, and being a publisher, you are giving out a lot of books, and most of the books I didn't like, actually, to be frank. And I have been an editor too, so I edited a lot throughout my life. But it's like acting, you know. You wanna be understood perfectly. You wanna make the characters precise, and you wanna be seen like a person who respects either the viewers or the readers. So I learned one thing as a publisher. First of all, you as readers are much cleverer than most authors think. You are actually clever. You are also reading more books than the authors are. I mean, many of you have read maybe 10 times the books I have read. So I had to respect that. I had to be generous. I had to think about how can we best cooperate in this book. Cooperation means actually that you are making the story up yourself. And if you are lying in your bed, and I love to be there with you, and reading the stuff, I had to think about how the reading goes on first. Maybe you think, well, I can take a nap now. It's plenty enough. Then I give you a little sentence, small, like 5, 6 words, with a cliffhanger. Now you have to read 10 minutes more, even though you want to sleep. And then again, your lovely head falls to the pillow, you are sleepy, and then I give you some humor. And humor is very, very important in my books. You have to laugh. And when you're laughing, then you are making dopamines in your brain. And with dopamines in your brain, you can't sleep. And I say, haha, it takes you half an hour to get the hormones away from the brain. Now I have you for half an hour more, maybe, if I'm lucky. But then what? Then I'm giving you, after half an hour extra, the killing, the murder, the incident, the crime, to make you awake maybe 1 hour more. And then you're ready. But then I come with a little cliffhanger. And now after that a little humor. And then again the crime. So turning into, I mean, the inevitable faith of the book is also the inevitable faith of that I can't allow you to sleep. So that's my book. But what's more important about writing books, and I know that as a reader myself, is that if we can't cooperate, then it doesn't work. I have to trick the fantasy of viewers. I have to trick the imaginations to make it clear from you whatever is going on in the plot, in the character, and not giving too much away. So I'm editing and taking a lot away while I'm writing to give exactly what you need to make your own story. And that means a Karl Merck or a Assad or Rose, the three main characters, are different from every head to every head. I know there's 15 million or even more different Karl Mercks in the life. Cooperating with the reader means that you are in the story, that you can see it clearly in your own mind. And you're so different, you know? Many people think I'm very gruesome and I'm very detailed. I'm not the gruesome and detailed one. You are. Because in your head you are making all the dirty stuff and the horror thing. And if I'm putting, you know, a small pile of blood on the floor, one of you will think it's a small pile of blood on the floor. Another would think it's floating with blood and it's terrible. I'm never detailed. You only think I am. And that's very, very important. So that's one of the tricks.
That was my next question, because everyone who can read the novel can notice that you are a master of creating contrasts, of creating balance between sad, between fear, between intense, between humor, sarcasm. How did you came up to this successful formula? Because you do it very
Thank you,
successfully.
but I am a mixture between sarcasm, irony, humor, and just being a plain guy and nice. But most Danes are like that, you have to know that. I think the Macedonians and the Danes are quite alike, because you're humorous. But you should come to Sweden once. I mean, in Sweden they're very, very formal. I know that because I have been a manager in the Swedish company. Very formal. And that, well, suddenly you realize that tricking the humor of a Swede means you have to work very hard. To trick a humor of a Macedonian, I realized the last few days, it's so easy. So I don't worry about you. But Germany. And I'm selling 1.3 million of each book in Germany, means I have to press myself through the formality of the Germans. You know, two Germans could work together for many, many years. They are maybe the best friend on work, but they are never using the first name. Never. To go through this formality, I succeeded with, because I found out what's the humor of the German. And I also found out that most people in the world are like private Danes in disguise. They have humor and they are easy to trick. In Denmark, we are having another little specialty, because we don't care about authorities. You know, I have a little respect for the Queen. She's very nice. She has, you know, she smokes a lot of cigarettes and she has yellow teeth, but she's my Queen. So I say Her Majesty when I talk to her, and I bow deeply. But all, except for her, doesn't have my respect for what they seem to be, but for what they are.
We are different.
I know you're different. Throw away the corrupted politician. Say it directly to them. Go home and be ashamed. Sit in the corner and cry because we don't want you anymore. Try to do that. We can do that in Denmark. That doesn't mean they are going home and be ashamed, of course, because they don't care about me as an authority even. But then you have the possibility in my writing, you know, to point the finger. Have you ever, if you have children, have you ever tried to do that with the children? Do you know what they do? Yeah, That's finger talk. This and this go so well together. And if I ever try to do like this in my novels, even though it's very political, I have this back. People will not listen. Take humor. Take the humor and make the politician laugh from themselves. And the difference between the right wing and the left wing in Denmark, there's a big gap in the middle. But try to build a bridge with humor. Then we can talk. That's very Danish. And that's what I do in my books.
I have this dilemma for a very long time because I'm coming from film industry.
And she's very good, and I saw her in 3 different films, and she even studied in my country. Yes!
So I realized, you know, in a good Hollywood time, the script writers were writers. And in today, not only European cinema, but world cinema, the biggest problem is the story and the script writing. And I know that literature is here and film is here, and it can never be. The good book is always, you throw it.
Not always, I can mention one.
I can mention few, but it's only few. So I was always wondering why we forget when you read a good book, like your books. You read wonderful characters. When you describe how you write your characters, how deep you go, why and how we cannot succeed this in a film. Why and why we forget to collaborate more with the writers and to put this together. And I know you did few films. So what do you think about this? How we can?
Oh dear, you are pressing my wound here. I sold the rights for the first 4 books to a company called Centropa. It's the company of Lars von Trier. Maybe you heard about it. Anyway, I knew the producer very well. I know Lars very well, and I was confident that I knew them that well. They would just adapt the movies well. But they didn't. They took a scriptwriter in that maybe wasn't that good as I hoped for. Now he's in Hollywood, so that doesn't make things better. But the scripts, the adaptations, were like ever not interested in the characters, the depth of the characters. When you see a good movie that makes you cry or laugh, it's always about the characterizing. And there is the problem. But now we have, you know, the possibility in television series. And they are good, many of them. We have a few in Denmark, it's okay. And there are many in America, and they are doing it all the time. Better and better. And what is the trick, really? The trick is time, of course, to tell the story good. Now, try to see a story like a rubber band. I have made a story, it's within the rubber band, and I can do like this or this, make a little point here, still a rubber band. Now we make a simple adaptation to a movie. Then we cut the rubber band in many small pieces, throw some away, and then we try to glue it together again. But it's not elastic anymore. Do a television series. You take a rubber band, you cut once, and then you can make the rubber band endlessly or shorter. You can go deeper in the characters if you want, and you can leave it be. But one thing is for sure, you have time to explain about the characters. Now, after the 3 movies, and now soon the very 4th, I left the rest of the series in 10 books to another company, where I have a little more control. But I also sold my rights to Americans. It was like that. I was sitting one day, and then the phone rang, and this guy said, well, hello, my name is Scott Frank. And I was a little Scott Frank. I know the name, I said. Scott Frank, I know a guy who are a scriptwriter in Hollywood, and he made The Little Man Tate, Minority Report, Get Shorty, Schindler's List, you know, fairly good movies. Then he said to me in the phone, you don't have to mention all my movies. He was a guy. That was Scott Frank, maybe one or two of the best screenwriters in the world, and he asked for the rights for the Department Q series. So I sold the rights to the film company, and now they're going to make television series. But anyway, to have the good scriptwriters mean that they actually respect the written word. Maybe I could have adapted the movie myself, because I'm educated in movies myself. But it will take me 1 or 2 years to make a good adaptation. And I know one movie where I truly say the book is better than, the film is better than the book. And that's the Schindler's List of not Schindler's List, the Cider House Rules of John Irving. John Irving is a very well-known American writer, and he's very loved, and the best of his novel is the Cider House Rules. Now he made the adaptation himself. It's better than the book, and he thinks so too. But it took him 2 years to make it, and then one book was...
himself.
Yes. So maybe more writers should make their books, their adaptations themselves, but I'm simply too old. I want to do more books, that's it, simply. So I have to rely on the adaptations.
Maybe to have more control, if you can.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so. But I have to say, having such a loving actor here, that the actors can influence. Normally you say the director is the one who makes the character deep or so, but the actors can protest, or they can cheat. And they can cheat with a little glimpse in their eye. And sometimes the glimpse in the eye says exactly what is needed to make the character better and deeper. Do you have glimpse in your eyes? Yes, I think you have it.
Do you think this is possible? The culture of the books to be to everyone? Can we have here responsibility about the world?
What a lovely anecdote. What a lovely anecdote. I was in Montenegro a few years ago, and I listened to a band which is very dear to me, Neverne Bere. And I love it very, very much, and I talked to them, and I asked them, where can we buy your CDs, because I can't find it in the shops. You can buy it from us, we made some pirate copies. Very cheap. Okay, thank you. So I still have it. Anyway, now my publisher is sitting here. So I want him to survive for a few years with the books. But we have a thing called the public domain. And public domain means that the rights are for free. And normally it's after 50 years when the person who made the stuff dies. Hopefully it will be in many years in my situation. 50 years is a long time. I don't think that anyone wants to read me in maybe 75 years. Long gone. So, we're having a saying in Denmark, we're having a practical thing called karenszeit. Karenszeit means a period from one thing is happening to another. Like, I could say, I will not sell the e-books for 3 months. First the printed book, then the e-books. I tried that, didn't work. But maybe you could say, all rights should be free to all art after not that many years, as 50 years, maybe 5 years. Can you control it? I don't know. But it's so true that taking up art in any form, film, I mean paintings, sculptures, not sculptures here in Macedonia and Skopje, but sculptures, you know. And taking up literature and so forth, for everyone means that the person are not spending time with stuff that is not that healthy and prosperous. So the story about Pakistan, I understand it very well. Actually I would wish that there were a little more private copies of mine in Pakistan, but I can tell you, in China, there are millions that I don't know of, and I never caught any royalty of that. But of course I'm proud. I'll tell you a story about karenszeit. In Germany, where I'm selling so much, I wanted to support the bookshops by saying the e-books are after 3 months when the printed books are being sold. And my publishing house was scared about it You can't control that. Of course I can. I'm selling the e-books 3 months later than the printed books. 3 days passed. And then from that time on, my assistant had more than 100 emails every day from ebook readers that hated me. Hated me. Like, if you think we are buying the printed books instead of that, fuck you too. And I can tell you, if you ever believe in that we are buying your books in 3 months, don't you think we will? And if you believe we will ever read you again, don't you think that, you silly, idiotic, illoyal, dumb author? Thank you for that. I mean, hundreds of emails like that. So I thought, okay, I can take that. I'm selling 1.3 million, so we had 600 of those. Who cares? That's it. I support the bookshops. Finito. But after yet 2 days, we realized that there was a company in Togo in Africa who scanned the books nicely and printed the books, and made e-books by this scanned books and sold 300,000 copies within a week. Then I had to be a little humble, right? I begged that my company wouldn't hate me for that. We never had the 300,000 e-books back, of course. That was the lack of this book. So it didn't work. Because here in this world, we are doing whatever we like if the opportunity is like that. So there's a trick to that. But I think 5 years, give it free. Yeah, yeah.